All right, let's pull back the curtain on one of the biggest, most overused buzzwords in all of tech, the cloud. What is it really? I mean, why does it matter so much to, well, everyone? Today, we're going to break it all down. Simple, no jargon. Let's dive in.
So let's just start with the biggest question, right? You hear it all the time. Oh, just save it to the cloud. Our app is powered by the cloud. It sounds so out there, kind of floaty, maybe a little bit like magic. But what on earth are we actually talking about when we say that?
And here it is. This is the big secret, right up front. The cloud isn't some magical vapor floating over our heads. No. At the end of the day, it's just a whole bunch of powerful computers, servers really, sitting in giant warehouses called data centers all over the world. And you're just renting a little piece of them over the internet. That's it. It's not magic, it's just someone else's computer.
Now, to really get why the cloud is such a game changer, we kind of have to travel back in time a little bit. We need to look at how things used to be done, back in what I like to call the server in the closet days.
You see, in the old days, if your company wanted to run a website or some software, you had to do everything yourself. And I mean everything. First, you'd have to go out and buy these incredibly expensive servers. Then, you'd have to find a room for them with special air conditioning to keep them from overheating. Then, you pay for all the electricity to run and cool them 24/7. And on top of all that, you had to hire a bunch of really smart people just to keep the whole thing from breaking. It was a lot, a huge burden.
And this brings us to a super important money term, capital expenditure, or what people in finance call CapEx. This is all that money you have to spend upfront just to get the physical stuff you need. Think about it. It's this massive, risky investment you have to make before you've even started. For a lot of smaller companies, this was a total deal breaker.
And this, right here, is where the cloud just completely flips the script. It takes all of those problems we just talked about and offers a totally new way of thinking. So let's break down the 5 biggest benefits you get.
Okay, so here are the big 5 we're going to hit. First, scalability and elasticity, which is all about growing and shrinking on demand. Then we've got high availability, which is just a fancy way of saying staying online. Number 3 is disaster recovery, your backup plan for when things go really wrong. Then agility, how you can move way faster. And finally, the big one for a lot of people, the economic wins.
All right, first up, scalability. Let's say your website is getting really popular and it's starting to slow down. One option you have is to scale vertically or scale up. This is basically like giving your one computer a shot of adrenaline. You beef it up with a faster processor, more memory, you make that one machine a total powerhouse.
But there's another way to do it, horizontal scaling or scaling out. Instead of making one machine bigger, you just add more machines to the team. Now you have a whole bunch of servers all working together, sharing the workload. In the old server in the closet days, this meant ordering a new physical machine and waiting weeks for it to arrive. Just weeks.
And this brings us to the real magic of the cloud. It's called elasticity. Elasticity is where the cloud platform automatically adds or removes those computers for you in real time based on how much traffic you're getting. So if your app suddenly goes viral, boom, the cloud spins up 100 new servers in minutes to handle it. And this is key, when the traffic dies down, it shuts them all off so you stop paying. It's incredible.
Next up, high availability. Cloud companies give you this promise. It's called an SLA, a service level agreement, and they'll promise something like 99.9% uptime. Now, that sounds like a lot, but what does it actually mean? Well, it means they guarantee your service will be down for less than 44 minutes over an entire month. Trying to achieve that level of reliability on your own is so unbelievably expensive and difficult.
And then you've got disaster recovery. So what happens if your server room floods? Or, what if a tornado literally hits the data center where your stuff is? With the cloud, it's easy to have copies of your data and apps in totally different parts of the country, or even the world. So if one location goes down, everything can automatically switch over to the backup and just keep on running. It's like a built-in insurance policy for your entire business.
Okay, but let's be honest. Probably the single biggest reason so many companies move to the cloud comes down to money. It just completely changes the economics of how you pay for technology. So here's the crucial shift. We go from CapEx to OpEx. Remember that huge, scary upfront cost to buy servers? That's CapEx. Think of it like buying a house, a massive long-term investment. The cloud changes that to operational expenditure, or OpEx. Now you're not buying anything, you're renting. You just pay a monthly bill like you would for an apartment, and someone else worries about the maintenance. It's a total game changer.
And this really is the core idea.
You get to avoid that giant, risky upfront payment, and instead, you have a predictable operating cost every month. It just lowers the barrier to entry for everyone and gives you so much more flexibility.
And this OpEx model works because it's a consumption-based model. The best way to think about it is like your electricity bill at home, right? You don't pay some flat fee for all the power the electric company could give you. No, you only pay for the electricity you actually use. It's the same at the cloud. If you turn off your servers for the weekend, you stop paying for them. It's that simple.
Okay, so we get the why. Now let's talk about the what. There are three main ways you can use the cloud, and to explain it, we're going to use the absolute classic analogy, pizza as a service. Trust me, this will make it all make sense. The key idea behind these three models is something called shared responsibility. The cloud provider, like Microsoft or Amazon, always handles some of the work, and you always handle some of the work. The only difference between the models is where you draw that line. It all comes down to one question. How much of the pizza do you want to make yourself? Let's walk through this. First, you've got on-premises. That's like making a pizza from scratch at home. You manage everything, buying the oven, getting the ingredients, making the dough, baking it, all of it. Now for the cloud models. First up is infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. Think of this as a take-and-bake pizza. The pizza place provides the raw pizza, but you take it home, you bake it in your oven, you set the table, get the drinks. Next is platform as a service, or PaaS. This is like getting pizza delivered. The restaurant does all the hard work, they make it, they cook it, you just have to worry about the table and the drinks. And finally, my favorite, software as a service, or SaaS. This is like going out to eat at a restaurant. You literally just show up and eat. You manage nothing.
So what does this look like in the real world? Well, IaaS is when you rent the fundamental building blocks, like a basic virtual computer in the cloud. PaaS is when the provider gives you a whole platform to build on top of, so you can focus just on writing your code, not managing servers. And SaaS, well, that's what most of us use every single day. Things like Microsoft 365 or Gmail. They're just finished software you use over the internet.
Okay, one last thing. We need to quickly talk about where these clouds actually live. Because, believe it or not, there are a few different deployment models.
First, you've got the public cloud. This is what most of us think of when we hear the cloud. It's services from a huge provider like Microsoft, Amazon, or Google, where lots of different customers share the same giant infrastructure. It's cheap and it scales like crazy. Then there's the private cloud. This is where a big company builds their own cloud just for them. It gives them way more control and security, but it's also more expensive. And finally, you've got hybrid cloud, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a mix connecting a company's own private stuff with the public cloud to get, hopefully, the best of both worlds.
So when you boil it all down, that's the cloud. It's not magic, it's not a mystery. It's just a fundamentally new, flexible, and way more cost-effective model for getting access to all the computing power you could ever need.
So, I'll leave you with this little thought experiment. The next time you stream a movie on Netflix or check your email on your phone, you know you're using the cloud. But now you can ask yourself, which kind of service is it? Which pizza are you actually eating? Thanks for sticking with me on this one.